We're here with the Midas Pro 2 today, a great sounding console. The sound is really good. There are a couple strange bugs that we've come across that should be able to be fixed with just a firmware update. It's not a physical limitation of the desk. There is some weirdness and just a couple things that could be clear and could make operation a little more fluid and faster. We're going to start just setting a channel. We'll say like maybe it's a vocal channel, and I'm going to do add some gain, get a high pass going there, and maybe just a little bit of EQ that I know would work well for the room. And that's going to be my starting point for all my vocals. We're going to say that maybe I have 3 vocals right now. I'm just sending some tone and wiring it down 3 channels. But this could very well just be a stage where we patch 3 vocals. I've got my settings that I want on the first one. I'm going to go up here and hit copy. And I'm going to go to my other 2 channels, paste those channels there. You'll notice that now all the channel strips are the same. It's taken the EQ as well as the gain and is moving all channels. But if we look at the metering does not reflect this. It does not reflect the actual gain. If it were just the fact of copying and pasting doesn't move your head amp, that's fine. But as we can see when we click on these other 2 channels, there is gain in those channels. What we need to do, we can confirm that gain is there in the patching. We can go to our stage rack here. Go down to the second bank of 8, and you will see 14, 15, 16. The initial channel that I copied from has the gain, but the channels that I pasted to, the gain is not reflected in the stage box. However, it does appear when I click on those channels that it has that gain. There seems to be some sort of disconnect between the stage rack and the actual channels. Now, if I select one of those channels and just change the value, wiggle it a little bit, and go back to my stage. Now it's seeing it. So copy and pasting gain to any of these channels, it won't actually show the gain in the stage rack until you kind of wake it up a little bit. And now we can see that it's metering evenly. That'll slow you down if you think you're copying and pasting everything, but you're not. Let's see what's next here. Louder. Cool. Also, I have in my show file preference to display rotary values. Is a very helpful feature. Just a touch, you can see what your values are on any knobs. But this feature does not work unless you are zoomed in on your special detail menu. This feature would only really be truly useful for speed if when you were zoomed out, you were able to see any of these values. At this point, to actually see the values, now we already have a detailed view of what's going on. It's much less helpful at this point than if it were available when we were seeing the entire input channel. Alrighty. This is a very peculiar bug that I've found. When we're in the general overview metering, should you happen to solo a channel, it will graphically display the gate section of the dynamics. Presently my gate is not active, but whenever I solo a channel, whatever the gate setting is, it will reflect as if it is gating that. Just for fun, if I go into the gate settings and roll that threshold all the way down, I guess I'll have to do that on the channel signal. So now on 14 I have a gate, sometimes chopping it, sometimes not. This bug in the metering actually does correspond to the threshold of the gate. It's important to note that this is just a graphic display bug. The gate does not actually enter the audio. But boy, is it weird. So now viewing our channel strips, our selected channel will only occupy this amount of the screen. Most of our values in the channels can be seen, but again, without the display rotary feature showing us anything zoomed out, we're left with this graphical display only, unless we zoom anything in. If we're really on the move and just go to start dialing in our comps, why is that so? And we pull this compressor down, it'll show us a curve and a green and a yellow, but really what would be useful here is an actual numerical value of gain reduction. We don't get to see that until we zoom in, and then we have useful information. Again, same with the EQ, we don't really have, except for this plot, an idea of what we're doing until we zoom in here, and then we get the touch to the values. We can actually see what frequencies we're cutting. This frequency response curve does not go to the head amp section where your high pass is located. So there's actually two separate frequency curve displays. Now, if you do go into your EQ, your high pass and low pass will be reflected, but the opposite is not true. So don't get tricked into thinking you're leaving that flat. You actually do have EQ going on there. Similarly, needing gain reduction values would be nice. If we go into the multi-band compressor, which I have on 14 here, never in this plugin do we get any sort of numerical value for gain reduction. So we have some metering that shows inputs on all the bands. We have green metering, and then we have some more green bars for gain reduction, but no actual numerical values. If it were to display exactly what we were doing, it would be beneficial, I would say. That's just a display from the actual plugin. Sounds great. For sending to aux sends, the graphical display for sending to aux sends is a little big. If you are disabled, let's go ahead and go to 7. If you are not, if your aux send is not engaged, turned on, you will still be able to see metering in the color scheme that the aux sends are set up for. Making it appear that maybe you're sending level to those aux sends. You are not unless you engage on, of course. And the difference between on and off is kind of a shade, a brighter shade of the same color, which hopefully you can see that on the video. Depending on what your screen brightness is and your environmental brightness, it can be very hard to detect if you're actually sending level or not. Simply the color gray. If your aux was disengaged, the color gray as you're turning up and down would make that much more clear. There is an instance where your aux send levels are grayed out, and that is when you're in the 8-channel view. This is a little more confusing though, because let's go to, say, a bank of auxes that are enabled, 9 to 16, and we'll go to channel 16 and start turning up our aux sends there. You'll notice that in our 8-channel view, everything is grayed except for the aux that was last selected. So if I select aux 14 to flip the fader and then go back, that aux now has color and the rest appear grayed. However, they are enabled, and if you look in the individual window, you see that they are now the lighter color. So although these are all grayed out, they are still passing level. whichever has the color and isn't grayed out. It just matters whichever aux you seem to have selected last, which is a little unclear. And I would rather the gray option be saved for the options that are disabled. That. Similarly to the graphical display with the aux ends not being terribly clear about whether they're engaged or not, is an issue I found with assigning to subgroups. I have presently aux 9 as a subgroup, and when I engage that, you'll see a blue button labeled on light up. If it's disengaged, it is a slightly less dark, or slightly darker blue button that still says on. When I engage it, it lights up a little bit. To see the contrast, you can figure which one's on and off. But if you're just looking at a channel and you see a button that says, I think a button labeled off and on that remains the same color would help display much easier. Similarly, in the master section especially, and some of these aux ends, they on our graphical display, it kind of mirrors the theme of the tactile buttons. The red stereo button, the red LED, the mono bus is the yellow button, the yellow LED that illuminates when it's engaged. Also on our auxes, the pre button is gray with the yellow thing. It's just not terribly noticeable. And for a tactile thing, that's one thing. But there's really no reason that we can't have a very clear display on a graphical unit, like what they've done with the Mute. While we're here, this bus trim knob on any outputs, this knob will not affect the bus trim. Tried swapping this thing, which looks like either input trim or stage box, this same knob that controls all of that stuff. If you happen to select the bus, you cannot find a way to turn that bus trim knob down, save for mousing over it and pulling it where it needs to go. Back to input channels. Your EQ, of course, we all know you have to scroll around. That's really not the biggest deal in the world. But each frequency band has stat points. You cannot scroll around indefinitely. So if you only have one bank left, you are limited by a stop in sweep. Also, the scrolling between bands is across the entire console. So if, say for example, you have a kick drum that you're working on the low end on, and you scroll over your vocal and your vocal's only giving you treble on the high end, when you go back to your kick drum, you'll still be on the high band and then scroll back down to the area you were working on. Similarly, the graphs on your outputs map to here. 8 fader showing, that's totally fine. You can scroll on where you need to get. But each time you select a new output, it resets it back to 200. So if you're working on, say, your house mix and you're having trouble in the high end, go to a wedge, it's back to 200. So you want to pull that, go back to your house mix. You're always starting at 200, so always scrolling back to the problem area. Anything else? On the note of graphs, So I want to open this graph up and see the entire thing. It's not. This isn't enlarging because I'm actually touching an encoder when I'm clicking on it. On a 31 band graph, most of the face of the plate is an encoder. You'll notice I can actually make adjustments here, so it's not enlarging because I'm actually clicking somewhere that can be adjusted. So I need to click out. There we go. Actually, that's another problem. There's no way to disable the automation buttons. If you were scrolling and then confirming, so like a find new scene, scroll to it, and then hit go, that would be great.
That was totally by accident.
Great point. I like this is here. If you need to, you're following a script in theater, you need to fire. That makes sense to be there. But there does not seem to be a way to disable that, which can get hairy.
People
sometimes.
reaching across the console.
Yeah. So we'll go to last. There we go, and we're back. Yeah, you can look at separate graphs than the ones you were doing. So right now, I'm going to open up monitor Oxend 1 graph, and then I can select other graphs, other monitor graphs. They'll pop up here, but I'm still looking at one all the time, which has tripped me up a couple times.
There should be an option that, like, as soon as this is on the faders, it should also be on the screen.
Definitely. Just to make sure I'm not faking myself out, sometimes I'll make sure that my graph is actually active in the in setting. So I'll take that button out. I'll see that the light now is not illuminated. So I'll click that back in. That, however, if we go to the assignable controls, we'll see that the fifth button open is the option to have graphic EQ in and out. The button is not recessed here, but the graph is in there. So if I toggle the graph in with this, it takes an extra step to get them to link. So let me do that again. I'm in with the button press. The graphic EQ in button is out. If I toggle between these while clicking the mouse, I am now out there, but the graphic EQ button is in. These are now opposite. I don't know if my graph is in or out at this point. The graph itself displays in, but the button is going out. To get them to link back up, you will have to press the graphic in button once. You'll notice that the light changed and the button stayed in, and now they are working together. But it has certainly tripped me up a couple times in the past. Okay, now dealing with aux sends, monitor sends. I'm going to go back to our channels and say we're going to flip the fader mode, send, we'll say channel 16 to aux 1. Flip the fader mode, push that up. Go ahead and look at our EQ. Small window version there. There we go. Okay, we're looking at the graphs. So say we've got our entire show. Okay, we figured out that's what mix 1 wants to see. We'll go ahead and go out of there to go back to our front house layer. But it will not let us latch out while any sort of detail button view is in. Now we can go to different auxes and outputs while in flip the fader mode. We can do mixes for everybody, whatever they happen to be, and we can page around, and you should be able to see what but we cannot actually come out of any flip the fader mode and go back to our front of house layer unless we disable first a detail button view. And that will be front of house. Also, the only way to close this is to scroll to the X. If we're looking at our selected channel or selected output and it occupies this part of the screen, it would be beneficial or at least the priority wouldn't be to give this graph the entire screen and then cover up the real estate of the screen that we do have for the selected channel. It would be far beneficial to maybe shrink this in to about the width of that so that we can still see any changes we're making on our selected channel or selected output in this 2.5 inches that we have on the right of the screen there. Also on the subject of monitors, if you're going to have to run monitors from front of house in the same console, it is very important to note that the earliest you can send an aux, your pre-fader aux, is still going to be post any of your channel strip EQ, post any of your channel strip dynamics. There is no way to make it pre-EQ or pre-dynamics. So any moves you make on your channels in your EQ section or dynamic section are also going to hit your monitors. There is no way to send to an aux send after just your head amp or your high or low pass filters. There is no earlier point to send monitors than after your EQ and your gating and your compression. The M32 has 6 different places in the input channel to pick your aux pickoff point. And they are not definable for the entire aux. You can pick and choose per banks of 2 channels what you want. So you could have all your monitors be pre-EQ and pre-dynamics, except for, say, if you have a left and right tracks that you want only your compression that you're doing at front of house to also hit monitors. You can designate those 2 channels to see compression or EQ or one or the other to hit the monitors as well, only on those 2 channels per aux send. So the workaround this to do monitors and front of house on the same console is to split your channel, split your patch, and turn the 48 channel console into more of a 24. I have my default session as 1 to 24 for a front house layer, and then 1 to 24 again for channels 25 to 48 as your monitor layer. So that's just the way to do it. It's very clear and obvious that the mute is engaged. Same thing with solo here. Bright, very clear that it's engaged, and when it's disengaged, it's a very dark button, which makes it very clear. But on a lot of these assign options, it's kind of needlessly vague when it doesn't need to be. It's really hard to tell just at a glance if you have everything engaged or not. And if you're in an outdoor setting or something where it's really bright and these tactile buttons aren't as noticeable, you would really want to rely on the screen to tell you what's happening. It's just not very apparent as some of the features are. The mute and solo are 100% the way they should be. Also on input channels, when you're adjusting your stage box gain versus your gain trim in the console, say you're sharing a stage box with a second Pro2 or any Pro Series desk, and at sound check you adjust your stage box level, and then for the rest of the show, each console would only be adjusting their trim throughout the show. There's never a way to not have an encoder for both your stage box and your trim tactile. So if you do hit the swap button to have all your selected channels only do gain trim, your assignable controls up here are doing stage box. If you swap so that you're doing digital trim on your variable controls, there is still a tactile way for you to change that stage box. Ideally, there should be a way to only have one of the game stages tactile at a time. That way you can't accidentally change your other console's game stage. This isn't a huge deal. It's a personal gripe of mine, and someone that wouldn't be familiar with the Pro Series, it might be counterintuitive to them, but the actual graphic for gain, the famous gray Midas gain knob that we've all come to know and love, is not the gain knob. That is the digital trim display. I would think that if you had one knob to display an actual gain stage, your stage box, and then another digital trim, I would assume, if I didn't know any better, that this kind of digital looking green LED display would be your trim, and your legendary Midas gray gain knob would be your actual gain. But it is actually reversed. This digital looking green LED is your true gain, and your familiar gray Midas head amp knob is your digital trim. Not a big deal, but someone that's not terribly familiar might think the opposite. Okay. The next issue has to deal with channel safes. Channel safes are a console status. They are not saved within a show file. This is a little hard to demonstrate, but I'm going to do it anyway. So this is my show file. I'm going to go back to our, we'll say I'm a visiting engineer. We're going to go back to our initial house person's show file. We're going to load that up. Go to their start page. Great. So now this is, I haven't even walked in to load in yet. I haven't loaded my show file. We're going to, for the sake of example, go to channel 16, and we're going to channel safe the mic setting. We're also going to go ahead and give that a bunch of gain. And we're going to do that, and we're not going to save anything anywhere. Let's just say that was a move that was made last night or on the show before here. It hasn't been saved to anything. I'm going to go back to my show file. I'm going to put the console on a stick. I'm going to load that up. I'm going to go to my start of the day. And we've got my show file up. On my file, I don't have any sort of recall safes, anything. You'll notice, though, that we've still got all that gain going on. And that channel is still recalled safe for mic. That'll be patched as well. That'll be patched as well as gain. This can start to get pretty hairy because essentially anything that can be saved, your mic patching, gain, your fader setting, your mute setting, EQ dynamics on any channel in the console, any output in the console, anywhere in here, should something get any sort of these safes, when you import your show, that's still going to be safe. So you're really at the mercy of whatever status the console that you're working on was last in, that nothing's been saved. Otherwise, when you import your session, some of that may not end up on the desk. And just for fun, I scrolled around and selected random things at channel safes, and now I wish I hadn't done that because there's no way to undo that and get that back, so I have to go through it. make sure that I didn't channel it safe my left right fader. You know. Damn it! I hate it.
I feel like it was something there.
So this is what you can do to be safe every day. Is to go ahead and go through all your inputs and outputs and check your channel safes. Make sure that nothing is strange on the desk before you load up your show. A little tedious, but definitely worth it. If say if something was channel safe off just with some extra gain on a channel that was maybe the right side of your keyboards, you might think that your keyboard patch was off. You might think that a mic cable or a sub box channel was one-legged, but no, it would be the actual session not carrying over all the gains that you had saved. Cool. Talkback section of the console has a built-in limiter, which is actually really nice and handy. Say we're going to assign our talkback to our 7 mixes that are on stage. And when we're done, we're going to turn it off. It will lose all the talkback assigns that you've sent. Anytime you toggle this on or off, you will lose all your assignments. A simple workaround is to simply have a mic with a switch on it and leave it active and on at all times, but at that point even having a on-off button for that seems rather pointless because you would just switch the mic off. There is a lack of true user-defined keys. The assignable controls here can be assigned to have various tasks, but they will be married to whatever channel you select the task to be instead of a global setting for any selected channel. So we could make this first encoder trim level for channel 1, but it will remain for channel 1 the entire time, as say a threshold or a delay send for any selected channel. It will only be for the channel you actually write the macro for. I would also like to have a page bookmark or a screen status or anything we can save to change the graphic display. So we have finished our check, and we're going to go ahead and save this up. Let's just scroll down to the next empty scene we have. 74, great. We're going to store our scene. We're going to call this video. Go ahead and store to empty scene. Yep, no, we have to relabel it. What's happening is it's going to allow us to type a name. It wants us to select whether we're going to store an empty scene, store the next scene, or before the scene we've selected. We need to do that before we label it, but we still have the opportunity to type in before it's ready to accept our action. So now we need to go back and actually do that again. If we need to denote what we're doing before we label, that's fine. But we shouldn't be prompted to enter a name before it's ready to accept it.